stumbled across all this information that all the world's scientists haven't. I like to share everything I've learned, and I imagine people are really grateful once they hear what I've got to say. We live in a confined container on a flat plane. Most people think we're weirdos, but I'm not really like that. I'm more of an open-minded naturist, as it were. So where do you think we are right now? Yeah, Brighton Beach, but more specifically, see, mainstream education will have us believe that we're floating on a spinning ball, moving at 1,000 miles an hour. That sounds a bit fucking mental to you. See, I trust my eyes. I don't need some educated scientist coming along telling me what to think. I think my own thoughts. Thank you very much. I've done my research, and why would I take the research of someone else over the research of myself? Do you know what I mean? That's like me relying on someone else's memories over my own. I've had people questioning my credentials, but they don't understand the sort of education I've had. My education was special, you know. If you look over there, you can quite clearly see France. I mean, you've got to really try hard and really want to see it and kind of imagine it's there, but you can see it. See, look, water always finds its level. That's why they call it sea level. If we were on a spinning ball, how's the water going to stick to it in the first place? Large bodies of water, it's easily demonstrable that this is a flat plane. You know, a child can see this, yet most people, mainstream scientists, can't. I've got the brain of a child, obviously. Here's a little quick experiment for you. Just got to find the right sort of stone. Skimming stones. Everyone's familiar with the concept of skimming stones. And you tell me how we're going to skim stones unless the Earth was flat. If it was a sphere or a globe, those globe toads call it, it would just like that, wouldn't it? Any second now. So, proof. That's proof of the flat Earth. Next. Easy experiment anyone can do, right? On a clear day like this, when the weather's calm, the water's settled, and you can see clearly defined the flat horizon. Get your hand like that in this position, otherwise known as the flat position. We're all agreed in this context that is flat, yeah? So if you just hold up your arm in line with the water line, at no point is there any curvature of the water line behind what you're seeing of your flat arm. And you don't need any equipment for that. That's the sort of science I bring to people. You're welcome. When I got into it, I suppose 5, 6 years ago, I got into it trying to debunk it, as loads of people do. And then I was like, hang on a minute, something doesn't make sense here. I'm looking at all this imagery and, you know, thinking, how does a body of water stick to a spinning ball? You know, it's obviously at the time beyond my understanding, and I'm like, someone needs to know about this, surely. I just feel like I've stumbled across all this information that all the world's scientists haven't. Obviously, I consider myself a scientist, but I'm more like alternative science, whereas mainstream scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson and stuff, they're all about the showmanship, really. Each to their own, you know. I don't hate on him as much as some of the others do, you know. I've got a bit of a positive attitude towards what you call conspiracy theories. I mean, most people think we're weirdos that live in basements or hang about in bushes in dark, seedy corners of the world, but I'm not really like that. I'm more of an open-minded naturist, as it were. It's taken me on a journey, definitely. Seen all sorts of psychedelic things when I've been on psychedelics, of course, but those are the sorts of substances that help you open your mind and see things in a different way. Sometimes it's important to take yourself away from reality to really understand reality, you know. Everyone thinks that we need to go by the mainstream narrative or the agenda, and that's not what I'm about at all. I've never been good at listening to people who've got careers in this sort of thing. People will have you believe that we all came from monkeys and dinosaurs existed. I mean, that's only the plot line of one of the biggest films of all time, Jurassic Park. Yet there's people out there who think it's real. It blows my mind to think how stupid some people can be, to be honest. First I thought the whole idea of faking the shape of the Earth was about generally just fucking with us. Even I was back in my brain at first thinking, what's the point? You know, some big Game of Thrones type ice wall, and we're like the centerpiece, creating this, like, I try and think of it as the Truman Show. We're basically just one flat plane in the middle of a load of others that are all sort of beyond the ice wall. That's why if you try and go to Antarctica, you'll just get met with hostility from some sort of battleship. You can see one peninsula in Antarctica. Just go and say hello to some penguins from a bit of a distance. Penguins don't even care, they're probably mechanical anyway. You know, penguins are a form of flightless bird, and we all know birds aren't real. So it makes sense that those flightless birds are just basically there as guardians to the entrance to Antarctica. But if we were able to go there, we could refute it or prove it otherwise, do you know what I mean? Whereas we're currently in this status whereby we've got to take everyone's word for it, you know. I've never been keen on taking other people's word for it. I don't care if you've learnt about it for 25 years. The education system pretty much owns you at that point. And if you've been educated in that system, you're only going to have learnt by one system, aren't you? The education system. And universities, they're all just basically part of the indoctrination. It's a case of endless resources and like a utopia. You know, if we were able to go beyond that wall, which they don't want us to go beyond, we can discover, I'm pretty sure that's where Asgard, Midgar, Atlantis, you know, there's got to be something to that as well. You know, I find that a great thing about this whole scenario is if you don't really understand something fully, as long as you've got a strong enough imagination, you can put your own pieces of the puzzle together and usually dedicate the whole of your life to following that train of thought. Everything they've been working towards has now come down to this, you know. I mean, we'll get on a bit more deep down the rabbit hole later, you know, but let's just say that all the powers and the forces at work, they're not all human. I believe we were visited by a race of shape-shifting aliens years ago, centuries ago, decades ago even. And they've basically been here ever since, living amongst us, controlling everything we do. You all right, mate? Go ahead. It's all right. Yeah, they've been pushing their narrative the whole time, and this is kind of like the culmination of everything. They've worked really hard. Fair play to them, but you know, I'm not having it. They didn't reckon about me, did they? They were like, we can enslave the entire population of the human race. But they underestimated me, you know, with my special knowledge. I'm their worst nightmare, effectively. I'm the one that could throw a complete spanner in their works. I'm basically the one that can save the world. Bill Gates, obviously, is the devil in this scenario for reasons no one's quite been able to clarify yet, but we're working on it every day. We're always accusing Bill of stuff without any evidence, and eventually we'll hit the target, you know. As long as you keep throwing enough darts at the board, eventually you'll get a bullseye, as the old saying goes. It's good to accuse people in advance, I reckon, sometimes, and then if they don't defend themselves, like I can't tell you how many times I've sent Bill Gates an email. First I was polite, yeah, I'm very respectful, because at the end of the day, he's the founder of Xbox. You've got to respect that. But I've emailed him, I've tried calling him, I phoned Microsoft and they were like, who? I'm like, it's Brian, I'm investigating the genocide that Bill Gates is carrying out, and then straight away they put the phone down on me. Honestly, I've sent about 24 emails by now and Bill Gates hasn't even answered. That's effectively a sign of guilt, isn't it? If he wasn't guilty, he'd have taken the time to answer to me and all these other people that keep emailing him. Which I think is a bit rude by Bill. And look at his name as well. He's the, when you have Watergate, you had Pizzagate, Partygate. We wouldn't be calling it Gate if he was innocent, would we? It's Bill Gates, plural. He's like the gatekeeper, I feel. He's like the one that's really, he's trying to enslave mankind. He's got all the money in the world, all the technology at his fingertips, a legacy in front of him, but the one final piece of the puzzle to have everything he wants, everything his heart desires, is to track me. This is again another easy experiment. So globetoads will tell you that we're on a spinning ball and water sticks to it. I know it's fucking mental, but that's what they think. So, you know, it's like a religion, isn't it, I suppose. But how do you disprove it? Very simply. I've got what's a fair, accurate interpretation of the globe. So this melon represents the globe, as it should, why wouldn't it? It's pretty like for like, I'd say. Nothing different about it. Because gravity is still only a theory, so they reckon that we have water sticking all around us. As we previously talked about, that's why it's called sea level, because water always finds its level. This is what happens when you do pour water on the melon. As you can see, most of it ended up on the floor, a little bit on me, but it's the sort of price I'm willing to pay for the sciences. Also looks like I pissed myself a little bit, I suppose, but you know. What makes one person's knowledge more valuable than another's? You know, you've got doctors, you've got scientists, you've got traffic wardens. What makes one person's opinion more valid than another? Just a bit of paper, really. Just a bit of paper saying, I've learned this. Like a little gold star system you get in primary school. That and 9 years of medical training, sure. But I wasn't there for the training. How am I to know? How am I to know you weren't being trained wrong? The only way I know you were being trained right is if you were being trained by me directly. It's my duty, I think, you know, when you've got the sort of knowledge that I've got, it's essential that if you can help someone with your knowledge, you should really. I tell everyone, anyone that will listen pretty much from my smartphone, that we're being tracked. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, but they've all got really sort of woke and factual about stuff. They're only interested in verified facts these days, whereas I'm interested in alternative facts, as we said. Because you never know, there's so many times throughout history that we thought we were right about something and then it turns out we were wrong. We had to rethink our whole belief system. Yeah, the sooner people wake up to it, the better. I mean, I think certain social media platforms, they're good for spreading the information. It's important people like me use their knowledge for good. Obviously, with great power comes great responsibility. I just feel like I've got an obligation, a duty as it were, to share with the world that we're being tracked. I do that with my smartphone. I tweet and post and stuff, and that gets the message to a lot of people. There's a lot of new platforms now as well, where a lot of other warriors are getting together, and it's enabled us to mobilise. Now we've got all these groups of men who, well, without this, they might not have anything else to do. So what we tend to do as a criteria, we look for people who are maybe a bit lonely, need a direction in life, need a cause to fight for, and then we're like, come join us. We'll welcome you. We won't ridicule you of your stupid beliefs, because we've got beliefs that other people think are stupid, so we know how it feels. We're not about that. We're about getting together, mobilising, calling ourselves the resistance, the rebellion, if you will. Kind of like Luke Skywalker, I suppose. You know, we get together, we train, we gather our thoughts, and we plan our attack. We're definitely not just a bunch of people who got lost by the system. We've got a purpose. What we've got to say is important. And people slag off testosterone and say it's toxic, it's this, it's that. The reality is, without all this, who would be there to do it, you know? Again, the higher we get, the water level is still at eye level. You know, that doesn't change. If we were on a curved ball, we'd be able to see further, wouldn't we? But no, we're still seeing France just over there. Chemtrails are out in force today as well, I've noticed. It only makes sense that once they found out where I am, they were going to start targeting Brighton seafront. Makes sense that they would send out the chemtrails down here now as well. They know where I am. So I am, of course, a threat to the agenda. You know, I imagine there's pictures of me all over the walls of the FBI, CIA, MI5, Scotland Yard, all that sort of thing, being like, beware of this man, he's got special knowledge. I miss the days when planes just used to shoot out water vapour from the back. And if you notice as well, when they come to this sort of end of their tether, and they're all like chemmed out, as it were, they just start to become this kind of like blanket shape, or like cloud, if you will. That's where it all started, effectively. Down the rabbit hole. What I've learned about these kinds of things is you can generally take what someone said and bend it to how you want and read between the lines and come up with your own conclusions. That's how I draw my conclusions anyway. I just sort of, I take bits of stuff, I cherry pick, if you will, certain bits, and then, you know, with my canvas, kind of like an artist, I'll paint the narrative how I wish to interpret it. Could I ever interest you in perhaps coming to like one of our meetups and that, you know?
I don't know, maybe, for the crack, yeah, maybe I'll come along.
I don't know if you're ready for this, but basically, yeah, the government, you know how when you see a plane in the sky, not now specifically, but like they have like a white trail.
Yeah.
It's they try and masquerade it as like water vapours and stuff like that, but it's actually the government spraying the skies. And yeah, I know,
What for?
I know. Well, glad you asked. I've always been quite suspicious of Neil deGrasse Tyson as well, because if you break down his name, right, so Neil, as in to kneel or bow before, that's definitely an indication that he's part of some sort of organisation to control people, I'd say. DeGrasse, so everyone knows that's French for the grass. So to kneel on the grass, I haven't manufactured what Tyson will mean, but I reckon eventually I'll get there if I think about it hard enough. You might be all right. You might have got one of the, you know, I tweet stuff. I've got GPS disabled. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I thought of that. I haven't just fallen for that sort of thing. Yeah. I know it's all new information. This is probably quite a lot to take in, isn't it? This is like
sounds a bit. Yeah. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
You've got a lot going on.
Well, yeah. I have.
Not entirely sure.
So you know.
Which bits to take.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What are you going to do about it?
Well, obviously, first and foremost, I'm having this. This is why they're making a documentary about me, because I'm probably the only one that can save us at this point.
Right. Who's they?
They. It's not a preferred pronoun situation. It's a group of them.
Right.
Again, the term they is nice to use a blanket term.
Yeah.
That way you can sort of be non-specific, and if eventually we're like, well, that person probably wasn't into it, we can change our minds quite easily.
Yeah.
You know, we used to be all about Elon Musk being the evil one. Now it's all about Bill Gates. He's sort of the in thing at the moment. George Soros, Klaus, whatever his name is, Schwab. How do you know some stuff?
Well,
obviously.
I'll read the newspapers.
Yeah. I used videos because you know, reading is not my strong point, but videos it helps to give, you know, it helps to give me a perspective. I need a visual aid, and it's a general rule of when it comes to working out who they are is if you see somebody trending as a hashtag on Twitter, if you accuse them, you'll get your videos seen more. So that tends to be my rule of thumb.
Right.
That way I get my information out there, and it's what I do for a living as well. You know, this is kind of like, you had like kind of how Spider-Man was a photographer in the day, and then on the side he was a superhero slinging webs everywhere. Like,
okay,
that's kind of like what I do.
Okay.
By day I've got my day job, and then by night. I deliver food. Someone's got to do it. It allows me. It really helps me facilitate my activism. I work for Deliveroo.
Yeah.
But I'm happy with Deliveroo there because it's like Deliveroo, deliver truth.
Yeah.
Deliver truth.
Yeah.
It's clever, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm of the opinion that Deliveroo are not the enemy.
Right.
So. Again, they're trying to drown me out. That's them. That's them trying to drown me out.
Some guy waving at you.
Yeah. He's probably one of the Illuminati, if I had to guess. Deliveroo's a really good It's a really good job for me because it allows me to go out. I can get anywhere, you know. And if it's suddenly bang, there's a flat Earth emergency, I can attend to it. It's like if there's I think of it as like there's a bat signal in the sky.
Yeah.
Whenever I see that bat signal, that's when I'll attend. So I'll be driving around and I can be like, flat Earth, something's gone off, and I'll go to the source of the signal. It's usually just a helicopter or something, but I'm ready to do it if it's important. If that happens to be, you never know. That could be literally the CERN super collider could be creating a portal wherever. Welcome to HQ. This is where the magic happens. This is where I do a lot of my research, all of my research, frankly, if you want to call it that. But I find that as long as I believe it's research, who can argue with me? So let me show you around. Yep, some of the evidences. The key to being successful in the conspiracist world is you got to be ready for anything, you know, like literally anything. Because you never know when the whole world might erupt into government warfare and you know, general chaos, just like we have on Brighton Beach. I'm ready for the next zombie apocalypse. So I've got 2 of these as well. So you know, I may or may not take someone with me. I find one of my favourites, still pristine packaged. It's a little replica model of JFK's limousine. That really helps me visualise what didn't happen that day. Do you know what I mean? By having a model of it, it sort of proves. So, I've been for a while now. I've been suspicious of why Bill Gates bothered with a video games console, and after not having any facts, I came to the conclusion that it must be something to do with wanting a device in everyone's home. So for years now, I've been trying to get into one of the old original Xboxes just so I can see if Bill is in there himself, waiting to get out and attack us all. But anyone who's had one of these Xboxes will know that they're indestructible. But they call it a black box. I don't think because of the design. I think it's because it's literally as durable as a aircraft black box. Because look, there's literally nowhere you can start unscrewing it. Ignore the white powder that's on top of it for a minute. You can't get anywhere. You can't get anywhere inside this, and you could kill a person with this thing. Like it's literally a weapon of mass destruction. So he's probably up there with Bin Laden, I'd say. That's something I've been working on for years, and quite literally, I always get distracted, and that's where the white powder comes into it. But you know, one day I'll probably see a task through. One of the most important parts of my job is to make sure I'm right at all times, even if that's at the sacrifice of other people's opinions and right and facts and that sort of thing. And this place, it's a surprise to a lot of people because when you tell people that you believe the Earth is flat, they don't think you've got a roof over your head, let alone one that's not subterranean and possibly in parents' basement. So, yeah, I'm one of the more industrious flat earthers / truth researchers, you might say, because well, I can afford to eat and stuff like that, and I suppose that's probably why a lot of them look up to me. Really, there's I feel a big responsibility just knowing that all these people are, you know, they're hotly anticipating what I've got to say next, and that's why I've got the YouTube channel. So I'll talk you through that one, shall I? Because it's pretty much, YouTube is essentially the cause of all this. Also, the cure, some might say. So, I've got my channel where I share my knowledge, and so this is me. I basically do videos on YouTube, and I show people my research, my evidence, that sort of thing, and they just sort of send me money because I ask for it generally. A lot of these people, they don't think it through when they give me money, which is probably a key to being able to get it off them. But it's important to me. I know if it were me and I knew that I was funding Spider-Man, I'd be happy with it. And I imagine that's how a lot of people feel. They're like, well, he might not wear a cape, but he's our hero. One of the other things I do on YouTube is I take part in these debates with a lot of these debunkers, they call themselves. I don't know what it is they're trying to suggest they're debunking, because I know the truth, so it's like it's a bit of a fool's errand for them. But I was like them once, so I've got a lot of sympathy for them. Debates are pretty good because you get your face out there, you get to go on other people's channels, and obviously I destroy them every time because they just come up with all these, they repeat stuff that they've read in science journals, whereas I go out there and go, it's flat, mate, and then all they've got is someone else's words, but I'm like, still flat. You get someone that's got a career in, maybe they're like a pilot or an engineer or something like that, and they've done it all their life, and then I come along and I'm like, do you know what I mean? It must really suck for them because, well, they just look stupid, don't they? And I try and imagine how that must feel, because if I'm honest, I don't ever really feel stupid. Sometimes I cringe, to be honest, on their behalf, because they come along with all their facts, like scientific material, scientific journals, and they just get made to look stupid. And I've got all the empathy in the world for that. It's hard to imagine what that must feel like, because I never really feel like I'm stupid. I've made a few friends in this, not quite as many as I've lost, admittedly, but, they're all right. Like, there's other flat earthers, but I don't really necessarily think of them as friends, more people who are in awe of me. But there's a couple of the guys, they, just like I've got my YouTube channel, they've got their own YouTube channels doing what you call science, but I call pseudoscience for obvious reasons. I'm regularly in touch with a few of them. It's good to get on there and debate and just sort of, if the great thing about a debate is if you've got thick enough skin, you can refute any fact. Whatever they come at you with, I'm just like, you're wrong. And they have to kind of believe it, really. The block button, that's always a good one. Like, if there's someone in the comments that I don't agree with or don't believe in, and they say this is like a logical reason as to why you've got the facts wrong, I can just be like, block. That's pretty much what it was invented for. Just I've heard echo chambers getting a really bad rep over the last few years, but I promise you they're good. There's nothing smarter. There's nothing to make you feel smarter than an echo chamber. I promise you that. Echo chambers come in all shapes and sizes. You've got political ones, you've got scientific ones. And that's kind of why I've got a bit of empathy for all these people that believe in the heliocentric model, because their echo chamber is the mainstream media and science. And that's damaging in itself, But they can't see that because they're just so far down that rabbit hole of facts and logic that nothing I say sometimes really makes much of a difference. But you can see every now and again, you plant a seed in someone's head, usually somebody a bit vulnerable, maybe they've just gone through some sort of trauma in their life. You can really pinpoint that and find a way to get into their imagination and just, penetrate that, like that mindset. And I've seen once proud people, like proud, strong, with it, got their life together, sorts of people that as soon as they get into this, everything changes for them. You could argue for the worst, sure. I think their friends and family probably see worse, but I see it as just another acolyte that supports me on Patreon at the end of the day. I don't get all the money from Patreon. I mean, I've got higher powers that I work with and for, really. But I've got my own thing on the go. It's kind of like a pyramid scheme, but for real. It's not like one of them bullshit ones where you sell people a Trojan horse and then it's just you're mugging them off. The stuff I give, it's right, isn't it? So that tends to help me sleep at night. That and the fact that it funds my lifestyle. A couple of these debunkers I get along with quite well. There's a few of them. Some of them are nice, some of them are not so nice. I'm nice to them, so each their own. Like in life, you're always going to find people flat or heliocentric that are not your cup of tea. Both ways, and you'll get people that swing both ways, and that's up to them. I'll be talking many rings, and I've actually got a debate coming up tomorrow night with a guy called FTFE, Fight the Flat Earth, moderated by a guy called McToon. If you've seen some of my other videos, which some of you may have, some of you may not have, you'll have seen some of them popping up over the course of my YouTube antics, shall we say. Funnily enough, that's McToon calling now, just to make sure we're all ready for the debate we've got coming up. So, hello, mate.
Hey, Brian.
How you doing? You alright?
I'm calling to remind you to make sure that we're ready for the debate that I'm hosting between you and Craig, FTFE.
Yep, cool. I'm all ready for Saturday. No problem.
No, it's tomorrow. Friday.
Saturday. No. You always do this. You always pretend that you got the days wrong, and it's like, it's their way of getting out of it. But,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Look at, all right, I just read the DM. That's why I'm calling you. So it's tomorrow. Can you do it tomorrow, or do we have to reschedule?
I can do whenever you need me to do it. I mean, I don't need to. I'm not bothered about, when I destroy you guys. It's just a case of it's going to happen either way. So, I'll do it. We'll do it both tomorrow and Saturday if you want. But
It's okay.
Yeah, just know that once again, this is them trying to, trick me and stuff like that. But they do this. They go online and they're like, they forgot the wrong day. These flirts can't, And flirf is it's a term I don't know how I feel about, but we'll leave it.
You're good with flirf?
Yeah, I can. I mean, we can say it. It's one of them, in it, but like other sort of,
Oh, you can call yourself a flirf, but other people can't call you a flirf? Is that your... Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's 10 o'clock your time tomorrow.
Saturday. What's today?
You said you could change it, so...
Okay, well,
read
is that...
the DM, it's tomorrow, 10 o'clock. I need to hear 10 o'clock, because last
10
time
o'clock.
you also got the date wrong.
10 o'clock
And the time.
tomorrow.
10 o'clock your time. Yep.
Our time. Or your time.
Yeah. Not my time, your time. All good.
Okay.
10 o'clock.
Okay, and Craig's okay. He's going to bring a pillow because when he gets butt hurt again.
In case he falls asleep?
Well, that was a one-off. That was a one-off. He was tired. Is the reason he gave. So.
That's a one-off. All right, perfect.
Cool.
Yes. We'll be sure to have a pillow in case we fall asleep. But yeah, tomorrow, 10 o'clock. All right, we'll see you there.
All right, buddy. See you soon.
Brian, we'll see you.
Ta-da.
Bye.
See, they're lovely fellas. Some of these, in spite of us not seeing science the same, I can get along with them. You see, we've got a bit of a relationship where there's a mutual respect there. I think it's respect anyway. I don't suspect Sony for anything, but it's always good to be sure. Nintendo likewise. These things are like fucking Fort Knox. Oh. Fresh hell is this? Brilliant. I don't know how they fix these. What happens when it breaks? I don't even know where to begin hitting it. There's no way he made it that indestructible if he wasn't trying to hide something. That's what I'm taking from this. I might not know what Bill's up to, but I know he's up to something.
How long have you been into all of this?
It's about 5-6 years now. Flat Earth in particular. I got into it trying to debunk it. And the thing with the Flat Earth is it opens up a lot of other doors, because before you work out whether or not the Earth is actually flat or a globe or whatever you might think it is, you have to know about other conspiracies. So there's a lot of groundwork to do first. You know, you've kind of got to deny a lot of what you call reality in order to get to Flat Earth. But it was YouTube that really started me off of it. Like I say, I started off trying to debunk it, and then about 5-6 videos in quick succession. And there's a lot of people who reckon stuff. I was like, that's quite a lot of people. That's more than one hand. And as a rule, if I can't count something on one hand, it's important, you know. So that led me on to memes, which are easily digestible, especially when they're laced with popular culture references. That reminds me of my childhood. Nostalgia being the most underpriced asset there is, of course. From there, it just sort of snowballed, really, into a full-time career and general influencer. Some people have called me a celebrity. I imagine that statistic is going to go up with this, once this is released, wouldn't you say? You know? But I'm ready for it, you know. I'm sure I'll get people recognise me in the street in a positive way this time. They do now sometimes, but usually it's things like, "You fucking idiot," is what they say to me, and "What the fuck are you talking about, mate?" So I'm looking forward to the positive side of being a bit of a face about town once this is done.
Are there any YouTubers that stand out in particular for you?
Yeah, there was one that he's actually responsible for quite a lot of people waking up. He's he basically is a yoga teacher in Dubai, and the deal is you pay a subscription fee to him, and he tells you the Earth's flat. It's a bargain. It's a good way for him, I imagine, of funding his cushy lifestyle without having to do any work. It's always a plus, I suppose. You know, he's one of those people that he was one of the visionaries in it, because he got all the information there ready for us all to have a little look, put it together, swished it round a bit, and here we all are, you know, living our lives like it's golden.
So what's his profession and what qualifications does he have to make what he says credible?
What do you mean by credible? Like, as in provable? Well, he does experiments all the time. He does. Well, not, he doesn't. He gets other people to do it, and generally, he's a big fan of the block button as well. Like, if it goes back to the old adage, if you win a fight without having to fight, you've won the fight, doesn't it? Like, so if someone challenges him and his beliefs and wants to debate with him, what he does is he just blocks them, runs off, therefore he never lost. So because he doesn't lose, there's only two options here, isn't there? There's win or lose. We know he hasn't lost, so winning is probably the only way you can quantify it. But I'm not a referee, so I tend to stay out of these sorts of things. But we are all quite happy to just insist that he wins every debate that we have on his behalf.
And what about all the other scientists that say it's not flat?
I would say right back at that, they're just paid NASA shills. As a rule, anyone that doesn't agree with what we're saying must, by default, just be a paid actor or a shill or generally just a contrarian. There's nothing worse than a contrarian that just everything you say, they just ultimately they're just trying to find something to contrary to you. You know, that's not what I'm about at all. Obviously, that's not why I'm here. But you get people coming up with a lot of education, a lot of research, and that's a sure sign that they're in somebody's back pocket somewhere. They've all got an agenda at the end of the day. They've all got this big agenda to fuck with me and everyone else that they want to fuck with for a laugh. It's sad. I've got a bit of sympathy for them, to be honest. They just sit around all day, every day, dedicating their life to this sort of stuff, and it's just futile. But, you know, it's their life.
Are there any other factors that have influenced you?
Confirmation bias. That's your ally in this sort of thing. Because what you'll find is you're going to be in an environment where you'll be looking for stuff, and if you don't specifically go for stuff that already back up what you think, you run the risk of coming up to contrary information, and that's the devil in the context of debating stuff like this. So if you can summon the powers of confirmation bias, kind of like a superpower, then you're well equipped to follow me down the rabbit hole.
And what about your friends and family? What do they think of this?
My friends, they don't really understand. I used to have more friends than I do now, if I'm being honest. My family think I'm some sort of reclusive nut, which is up to them. My friends, I've got new friends now. My old friends were the kinds of friends that let you go to a nightclub and get drunk out of your head wearing white trousers. What about when you shit yourself? You know, and I found out those are the kinds of friends I had, and I've got new friends now, and they all think the Earth is flat as well, which helps our friendship, admittedly. They all kind of look up to me a bit as well because I was in there first, so they're very in awe of me. Like, it's how I picture them to be looking at me when they see me. But yeah, that's pretty rewarding, knowing that everyone that believes you is also of the same mindset as you.
You seem quite isolated from the world outside the conspiracy movement. How do you feel about that?
Isolated in what way? I mean, isolation is all in the mind. I like to keep my mind very narrow, if you know what I mean. I find that helps with the stuff that I believe. The narrower the vision, the more focused the vision, as the old saying goes.
So, what is the ultimate goal here? What exactly are you striving for?
The truth, of course, and for the truth to be universally accepted. I'm not some sort of dictator. People have used words similar to that to describe me, but I want to see it taught in schools, up there with the Globe model, for a full range of how can you be inclusive, which is what all these, radical left schools want these days, without also teaching flat Earth.
So do you see this as a radical subject?
Personally, no, but I can see why people think it is. Because from their point of view, they've just been minding their own business, and someone like me has come along and gone, you're wrong about everything you thought you knew, which is quite a bitter pill to swallow at first, Do you remember when you watched The Last Matrix for the first time and you realised that Neo was actually in a perpetual loop that he couldn't get out of, in spite of the fact that his whole life he'd believed that he was the chosen one once he was released, obviously. It's kind of like that. The Matrix is a great film because we've been able to reference it loads, Some say it's just a film, sure, but why would you end up making a film about something that wasn't real, ultimately? Which leads you to question every film that's ever been made, really, doesn't it? So,
I'm probably not the one to tell you whether or not it's radical based on everything. I'll let you decide that. Like, you're actually very fortunate. You get to be the first person to follow me around. Like, in this disinformation era, that is very sought after, I promise you.
Disinformation? What do you mean by disinformation?
The disinformation era. So, right now, you know, you had like the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, the Industrial Age. Now we've got the disinformation age. And it's terrifying because you see so many people for so long have been believing something, modelling their whole life around it. And who's to say what is disinformation and what isn't? I generally refer to it as anything that doesn't fit what I'm saying. So you could say one fact, and you might think you're right, but if it doesn't appeal to me, I can just sort of blank it out and go, disinformation. And that's the world we live in right now. Because I live in a world where everything's a conspiracy, because that's kind of the only way you can digest some of them is if you think that everything around you is or could be a conspiracy theory. You know, what you might think of as perfectly harmless technology advancing, civilization advancing, telecoms equipment, I see as a death weapon, potentially. And that way, if it is a death weapon in the future, I can be like, I told you so. You know, I was the first there. And the best way to avoid fear is to fear everything. Then nothing makes you afraid. If everything you see could potentially kill you, be a threat, be government controlled, it sort of takes the edge off it. You're desensitized, if you will, to real dangers. People will tell you that the royal family and all the world's most powerful people and, you know, sheiks and royalty are lizard people that visited from another planet. I think that's true, but I also think there's more to it than that. You know, have you ever considered why everyone cares so much about eyebrows all of a sudden? To me, it's very obvious that the more they distort our perception of eyebrows with all this shaping and stuff, the harder it's going to be for us to tell who's a lizard. I'll give you an example. So I was at the self-service checkout at Morrison's. I was scanning me pork pies and carlin for the evening. I was on one of those self-service that you're directly facing someone else. And I shit you not, this was around about the time when the film It came out, and there was all them killer clowns everywhere, people dressing up trying to scare people that everyone denounced responsibility for, but it was clearly a publicity stunt for the film. Around that time, everyone was a little bit on edge from clowns, admittedly. I'm not ashamed to say I was one of them. I was scanning opposite somebody at the self-service at Morrison's, and for a split second, as I looked up, I flinched. Because for a split second, I thought it was a killer clown. Turns out it was just a girl in fucking midday makeup with overly exaggerated eyebrows. And if there's one group of people that I blame for the eyebrows of today's society, it's the Kardashian sisters. What you got to ask yourself as well is, why suddenly now are we all being encouraged to go vegan? One, to make us all weaker, so that when the government do come at us with their tanks and their bombs and their drones, we're a little bit weaker. That will probably turn the tide for us losing that battle. And two, sweet corn. Sweet corn is the only food that is determined to make it through your digestive system unscathed, leading me to believe that it is the perfect vessel to implant a tracking chip into our bodies. So going vegan basically is part of the globalist, Illuminati, NWO, deep state, elitist agenda. Yeah.
Are you saying the government are injecting us all with nanobots?
Well, nanobots, Lego bots, I think a lot of people would have been. Yeah, a lot of people have already had it through the jib jab, of course, but for the ones that didn't get it, because quite often what you'll find is people that also don't trust the science of the jib jab, they're the sort of people that are also vegan, blue hair, and so they can't get in with the jab, so they give them sweet corn. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Hi, are you all right?
Brian, hi.
How's it
Come
going?
in. Go through, yeah. All right.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Very well. This is my friend Rosie. She's my special friend. Not special
Hiya.
friend. Not special. Well, most women are special in their own sort of. I should probably. I'm gonna get this away.
Yeah, you go on through to the kitchen.
How you been? You alright?
Yeah, I've been very well, thanks. What about you?
Well, just the usual bit of truthing. But you two, as always, it's important. Someone's got to do it.
Yep.
I'll start putting some of this away. Do the chopping board. I'll get the lunch on.
Oh, hold on. If it's meat, use this one. Because it's raw meat.
What's the difference? It's still,
Raw
I'm still
chicken.
chopping it though.
No, raw chicken, different board.
I like to let it, yeah. Yeah, I'll do that anyway. So, yeah. Have you got a knife?
Yep.
Oh, thank you very much. That's fantastic.
Here you go.
Cheers. Like that one, that's quite nice and sort of flat, isn't it? So, how have you been?
Oh, I've been all right. Same old, same old.
Yeah.
What about you?
I've had a date recently.
How did that go? I was going to ask.
It started off well.
Yeah.
It did. It started off
Was
well.
she nice?
She was lovely. She was lovely. It was all going well, and then I mentioned the shape of the Earth, and she was a bit taken back by why But I do understand she's not ready, and it's not really. I don't want to. I'm not one to try and dictate in a relationship. I'm not Eventually, of course, I'll dictate, but at first I've got to accept that somebody might think something different to me. But that's just part of getting on with people in life, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah.
So I was. It went well up until the point where I started talking about the shape of the Earth, and then she started talking about Angela quite a bit.
Right.
She kept asking the staff about Angela, and then she went, and I think she probably just got a bit ill, but I didn't notice any signs of her being ill. But yeah, she left, but maybe it was for the best, maybe my views and her lack of views didn't really work. Maybe we wouldn't have been compatible.
Yeah, you've got to kind of see eye to eye on some things, haven't you?
Yeah, and the
it's
shape of the Earth.
important.
Shape of the Earth's quite a big one as well. Like, what if you're hello, what? And they say gravity is real. The shape of the Earth's quite a big one. I mean, what happens when we both want kids, maybe, and she'll probably try and tell them it's a spinning ball. It's just not the sort of thing I can really get on with. But such is life. It's one of the sort of things I've had to come to terms with about the truthing work that I do, because no one really they don't really understand it. So unless they're already on the same page, it's quite hard for me to explain it. I'm not really a fan of round fruit, to be honest. Fruit. Is it fruit or veg? I forget.
Technically, it's a fruit.
Doesn't matter, does it? I'll put some more of this stuff away. Can go in there. I've got one of these as well. Because do you know that this is actually how people think the Earth is? I know it's flat. We've established that, but there are people in this world that think it's like the shape of a pear. It's amazing. So I thought I'd bring that one as well. And this bit I kind of see, we don't really need to have the dialogue that's we're going to sort of put images over the top of this. So the dialogue doesn't need to make sense. This is just really for a bit of just filling stuff. Should have got the other one ready, shouldn't I? These are very flowery. See?
They'll be good.
Yeah. What I like about these, have a look. Kind of, you could interpret this as like a flat moon. You know, like look at the craters and that. Because one of the things people always argue is what makes you think that the Earth is flat, but the rest of it isn't. No. There's your evidence.
Cat.
There. That goes there. There we go. Oh, thanks, Brian. Yeah, I've been meaning to rake those leaves up for...
No problem, that's what I'm here for.
Oh, bless him. Just got to be quick.
Okay.
Just try not to take her eye out.
How long have you known Brian for, and how did you two meet?
I've actually known him since he was a little kid, because I was good friends with his dad, who very sadly passed away when Brian was in his early 20s.
What do you think of all the stuff that he believes in?
I mean, it's bonkers, isn't it? I kind of, I nod along. I don't want to undermine Brian, but I just tune it out, It's bonkers.
Brian seems to think you rely on him to look after you. Is that the case?
I'm really happy if he thinks that, if it makes him feel needed. That's lovely. But it's kind of the other way around. Brian's been ill for a long time, and he was in a bad way after his dad died, and I promised that I'd always be around and keep an eye on him.
What do you mean when you say he was ill?
Oh, Brian's suffered from chronic depression for several years, and there's been times when we've all been really worried about him.
What about other relationships, friends, other family members?
It's very sad. He's become very isolated over the years. All his friends seem to think he's a joke, and his brothers, I think, resent the amount of time that he spent with his dad and how much his dad cared for him. It's really sad. He was a lovely, happy, bright kid. He had loads of potential. So, it's all wasted now. But in a funny way, all this conspiracy stuff seems to have, he's got new friends that he even calls his family now. Seems to have kind of breathed new life into him, almost given him some kind of purpose in a way, because really it was so sad to see all that potential go to waste. And he really is, the heart of him, he's a lovely guy. You've seen that. He bringing food round, making sure that I'm eating, he'll help with anything. He's so helpful, and he'll do anything for anyone. He really is the sweetest person.
Was there one particular thing that caused Brian to become this way, do you think?
Yes. He lost the love of his life.
I've heard of quite a lot of other scientists giving their expert views and stuff, but I don't really know why they're involved. I don't really know what their credentials are. Like, you got Brian Cox. I've had people saying he really knows his stuff, and all I'll say is this: is it a coincidence we've got the same name? People have quite often compared me to Brian Cox. They sort of say things like, Brian, you're a... which is quite close. They're basically saying I'm like Brian Cox without saying those words, but again, I can interpret things how I like. It's my my fantasy. I've always been quite suspicious of Neil deGrasse Tyson as well, because if you break down his name, right, so Neil, as in to kneel or bow before, that's definitely an indication that he's part of some sort of organisation to control people, I'd say. DeGrasse, it's another, everyone knows that's French for the grass. So to kneel on the grass, I haven't manufactured what Tyson will mean, but I reckon eventually I'll get there if I think about it hard enough. I was near somebody recently who was Jabba the Hutt, I later found out, and I can only assume through the shredding they contaminated me. I've never had any issues with sciatica before, but I've had chronic pains for weeks now, and I had to go to the doctors. And the thing is, I got a bit nervous, and I had to have to leave the doctors, to be honest with you, because it was getting a bit intrusive. Like, I don't know if anyone watching has actually had an exam for sciatica, but they sort of, you've got to kind of get into a position that makes you feel quite vulnerable, and then they prod and sort of, they go in there, they're not quite committed to it, and they're dicking around, not dicking around, they just sort of prod around, and I could just feel this sort of rush every time he prodded, and ever since then I just can't help but feel like, have you seen Aliens, the film Aliens? I like to sort of imagine myself in scenarios of popular film culture, and in, you know, where in the film they go and then they take over the person. I just sort of feel like that's what they were going for. So naturally what I did was just to my doctor and then ran out of there. Probably can't go back, realistically. Anyway. People have said to me, where do you see all this going? Wherever I feel like it, to be honest. That's the great thing about it. You know, I'm the master of my own chakra. I get to decide where I steer the boat. And right now I just feel like we're on a free fall. It's like the boat's off a waterfall, just sort of going down into the deep. Like that submarine that definitely didn't even, you know. Why would you go down there? Why would you go down to look at a wreckage of a boat on a screen? People have called me a lot of things in my time. Some of them not very nice. Most of them to do with my intelligence. Even I know you don't go down 4,000 feet to look at a wreckage on a screen when you could just Google it. There are a lot of people that believe, with very good reason, that the moon landing was fake. And you might say to yourself, well, who faked it? Because they're not very good at NASA. Like, well, so what they did, I'll just tell you. What they did was they got one of the greatest scientific sci-fi film directors of all time in Mr. Stanley Kubrick to film it because of his knowledge about filming. They couldn't find anyone else, and it makes absolute sense that if you're trying to make something like that up,
and keep it a secret, that you get the world's most famous sci-fi film director involved. Have you ever wondered why all the old buildings from centuries ago have really big doors, like massive, you know, sort of 5-6 metre tall doors, drawbridges in fact? Giants, that's why. They used to have, this planet used to be inhabited by massive men. The only discernible link we have these days is Shaquille O'Neal. He's a descendant of the giants, effectively. He's the only living proof we have that there used to be a species. Like, he was the runt of the litter. You know, he got, if anything, it's probably Shaquille that is the one that got away, and because he got away, we were then able to study him when he survived, and when the rest of them sort of died without us finding any remains, Shaquille was the one proof that we had. There's quite a lot of people think he was Sasquatch as well, but he ain't got any hair, so that's nonsense. Right, we're here with Professor Dan Albrighton from the University of Sussex. Pleased to meet you, mate. How you doing?
Hello, nice to meet you.
Dan has very kindly invited me to his home, which is it's pretty rare that any of these people let me anywhere near them. So he's a professor from the University of Sussex. He is a well-published scientific author of several bestsellers, is that right?
Yeah.
He's very well respected amongst his peers, as I've been reading. So with that in mind, what makes you think you know more than me about everything?
All the things you just said.
Yeah, but what does all that mean?
Well, it means I've spent my entire, professional life studying the universe. I've had my findings and publications extensively scrutinised by my peers, and they've looked for flaws, and the result is that, you know, my knowledge is as conclusive as it gets.
But have you done your own research?
What?
Yeah, I see where you've gone. I do my own research. Like, all the things that I know about science, I've literally gone out there myself and done an experiment to prove that. What about your knowledge have you actually researched yourself, or is it sort of mainstream books and education?
Well, is books and education, yes. But explain why you think your theory of the Earth being flat is valid.
Well, first of all, there's just some fundamental things that don't work on a flat Earth. Is that right? Yeah, fair enough. Fair to say. Like, mainstream science, no offence, will have us believe that we're on a spinning ball. Yeah, but everyone knows that water finds its level. Yeah, if you put water in a cup, it becomes a cup. Put water into a teapot, it becomes a teapot. Put water into a bowl, it becomes a bowl.
Go on.
So I've done my own experiment whereby, I'll show you. Here we go. You ready for this? This is again another easy experiment. So globetoads will tell you that we're on a spinning ball and water sticks to it. I know it's fucking mental, but that's what they think. So, you know, it's like a religion in it, I suppose. But how do you disprove it? Very simply. I've got what's a fair, accurate interpretation of the globe. So this melon represents the globe, as it should, why wouldn't it? It's pretty like for like, I'd say. Nothing different about it. Because gravity is still only a theory, so they reckon that we have water sticking all around us. As we previously talked about, that's why it's called sea level, because water always finds its level. This is what happens when you do pour water on a melon. As you can see, most of it ended up on the floor, a little bit on me, but it's the sort of price I'm willing to pay for all the sciences. Yeah, that's the kind of experiment I do.
I don't know if you're familiar with any of those sorts of things.
But that's just you pouring water on a melon.
Yeah.
That doesn't simulate the planet Earth in space.
Well, I know, because the planet's not a globe. That's what I've been saying. So we're kind of starting to agree, I think.
Look, let me explain to you how science works. Okay, so
I do know how science works, but I hear it in your words as well.
thank you. So a scientist, yes, will have an idea, a hypothesis, and he'll put out his idea, and then he'll come up with experimental facts that he'll try and get evidence for. But then he'll publish a paper, and that then is going to be scrutinized by scientists all around the world, deliberately trying to find fault with it. They're going to be looking for reasons why this hypothesis can't be correct. It's deliberately designed so that they're trying to prove that it doesn't work, you see. And only after they've scrutinised it and come up with experiments for why it can't work, and they found evidence that they can't find evidence it doesn't work, then the hypothesis becomes a theory. And they design more experiments to look for flaws in the theory. And if they can't find flaws, and if the theory predicts experimental results that they get, then this becomes scientific consensus. That's how the scientific method works. Scientists spend ages scrutinising each other's work. It takes years and years and years. And the more evidence that builds up for that makes the theory scientific consensus, scientific fact. That is the scientific method.
Sorry, in case I missed it, have you done your own research or not? I don't know if that was just like a longer version of saying that, but...
Well, I'm not an experimental scientist.
I am, actually.
I'm a theoretical scientist, but...
I do my experiments, so... You know. I understand, I mean, you've been educated by the system known as the education system, yeah?
Yes.
And it's one of them where if you're only to be in that system your whole life, like I don't, you know, I forgive you. I don't expect you know, you've been doing this, I've been doing that, and who's to say my experience is more invalid than yours? But like, I don't want to. I'm not arrogant enough to sort of think that just because I've done my research, you know, I'm not discrediting the 30 plus years you've been in the studying.
Well, yeah, 35, but
35 years.
but the point is, look, we're not talking about just a little bit of an experiment. We're talking about years and years of experimental evidence, and you've got to have years of experimental evidence with other people checking your work to see if it makes sense, and if they can reproduce those results, and if the theory is predicting those results. You're just pouring water on a melon.
Have those people done their own research?
Yes.
That you could do here in theory, well, not theory, but you could do that for us as well. Like you could.
Well, no, because this isn't a lab. This is.
How about we try it a different way? Because how about we try? So, explain to me how tides work, or like, because I don't see a scenario where if you've got a ball, let's say we've got a ball and it's got water. I can't even give a straight face. It's got water sticking to the ball, right? How does it, or how does one, if you want to talk scientist, explain the movement of the sort of like the tides?
Do you want to just do that again?
Yeah.
The water sticking to the ball bit.
Yeah, which part?
Just go from the beginning of that.
Okay. How do you explain water sticking to a spinning ball? Like you got tides. How do tides work?
Well, this isn't my field, but it's quite a well-known process how tides work because the Earth is spinning.
I know how tides. Yeah.
And at the same time, the Moon, which revolves around the Earth, has a gravitational pull.
I do have empathy, as you know, but that's where, and with all due respect, it's the education system's fault. It's not yours. Space isn't real.
Space isn't real.
No.
What do you mean?
You've seen Star Trek, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so effectively, what they learnt from Star Trek was that they can convince people there is such a thing called space. I know, mental, innit? But really, we live in a confined container on a flat plane. So none of the heebie-jeebie voodoo stuff you've seen on Star Trek, Star Wars, same thing.
But then what's outside the container?
Who knows? That's the beauty of beauty of
well,
science.
we all do know space is space time.
Okay, so you can't answer that one. What about volcanoes? Like, how would you
volcanoes?
explain, like, on a globe, like, basically what I'm getting at is volcanoes aren't real either. Like, because on a globe, you need for the globe lie to be a thing in order for people to believe that volcanoes are things. It comes from the molten core, but on a flat plane, they've had to find a way of fabricating and tricking us that volcanoes still exist.
How have they done that?
Good question. They've got.
Thank you.
They've got an underground tunnel chamber full of these magma things, and basically it's kind of like when there's enough pressure on the volcano spring, as it were, the lava will just sort of gush out at a press of a button. That's like
who's pressing the button then in your worldview?
The elites, the Illuminati, the NWO, whoever you want to call it. There's plenty of marketable terms depending on the hashtags and that. But basically, I know it's all quite hard to swallow because it's been going on for so long, and no one wants to admit that there is like a governing body that is just controlling our whole lives, but there is.
And they're controlling volcanoes.
They're controlling volcanoes, yeah.
To what end?
To trick people.
For what purpose would they do that?
Because then they would, there's nothing. If you can convince people that the Earth is a globe rather than flat, there's nothing you can't get them to believe. That's kind of like, it's one of them. If you can convince somebody that the shape of the Earth is something other than what it actually is, you just know that they're proper done in the head. You've got them.
So to prove your theory, if we want to call it a theory, you'd need some evidence of this mechanism to release the volcano.
Well, I haven't got it with me, but
well, no, but there must be some evidence of this buttons being pushed that releases the lava.
So you can't explain that one either. So we'll move on to something, maybe something a little bit more trivial in the grand scheme of things. Flight paths. Why? Like, so if the Earth was a globe, flights would be able to just go anywhere around it, wouldn't they? Like, they would just sort of spin wherever they feel like it. Like, you wouldn't really have to even coordinate it. But because of the flat Earth, you have to have all these like special units, like airports, if you will, that are together communicating to make sure they don't collide. And that's what they do on the flat plane. It's vital. If it was a globe, we wouldn't need all this. We wouldn't need.
Why would you need it on a globe? You've still got the same issue about you can't have planes colliding.
You'd have a lot more space, and then you could just sort of, if you thought you were going to crash, you could just keep going and going. It's like circling the block until you find a parking
but the
space.
Earth's a very big planet. It would take you a very long time to go around it. So they want to save fuel. They don't want to.
We've established it's not a planet as we think, though, wouldn't we? So
well, no, you've said that, but the Earth is a globe, and you can't just fly all the way around it until you land. You've got to go from A to B in the shortest possible journey. I don't see how your theory about aeroplanes really proves it's not a globe.
Show me. How about you show me? Right, so I'm here. I'm lucky enough to be here with Professor Dan Albrighton from the University of Sussex. Good to meet you, mate. How you doing?
Hello.
You all right? Dan is a professor in the sciences. He is a well-published scientific author who has achieved several best-selling books. He is well respected amongst his peers and has been studying this and the sciences and astronomy for the last 35 plus years.
That's correct.
So with all that in mind, what makes you think you know more than me about this stuff?
All the things you just said.
Yeah, but have you done your own research?
What?
actually missed a line.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So right, just keep going. Just
All the things you just go from all the things you just said. I know the line. It's just
ask him the question
Yeah.
again, so you can do all the things you just said.
okay. That's the whole first bit then. All right, cool.
Don't do the whole first bit. Just do the last line of it.
So with that in mind, what makes you think you know more than me about this stuff?
Sorry, could you do it again? Sorry. I was already being shocked.
So with that in mind, what makes you think you know more than me about this stuff?
All the things you just said.
Yeah, but what does that all actually mean?
Well, it means I've been studying the universe for all my professional life, and I'm sorry, I've totally forgotten what I'm saying.
And it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
don't worry
that's
about
all
it.
right. Let me go back a bit.
It's all right because we're going to cut in and out of all this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm still
how's it
rolling.
going?
So with that in mind, what makes you think you know more than me about this stuff?
All the things you just said.
Yeah, but what does all that mean?
Well, it means I've been studying the universe all my professional life. I've had my findings and publications scrutinised, looking for any flaws,
Me too.
and the result is that my knowledge is as conclusive as it can get.
But have you done your own research?
What?
Yeah. See, I've done my own research. I'm an experimental scientist. You know, I actually go out there and I like to get experiments in the real world and prove things or disprove how I see fit. So, with that in mind, I've got that evidence. But do you do your own research?
Well, I'm not an experimental physicist or anything like that. I'm a theoretical physicist. But explain the research you've done. What experiments have you done to prove your theory about the Earth being
Well, I
flat?
mean, I'll show you if you want. Because I've got experiments I've done. I actually film them as well, and I like to go out there
okay.
and really sort of. Yeah, here's one that I've done. It was just sort of. So you know how people think that we're on a spinning ball, and
Yes.
water can stick to it. It's mental. I've proven that water can't stick to a ball. You know, you put water into a cup, and so on. Have a look at this, right? You see how all of that water just ended up on the floor?
Yeah, but that's just you pouring water onto a melon.
Yeah.
That doesn't simulate the planet Earth in space, does it?
That'll be enough for that scene. Should we do the bit where it's over the shoulder, or should we do that at the end, I suppose?
Do it at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that kind of, it's that one that we want to get you doing, isn't
Yeah.
it, I suppose?
I'm trying to remember what's it.
Oh, we didn't do the IKEA, never mind.
Yeah.
I didn't even like that joke anyway, to be honest. So let me explain how scientific consensus works, kind of.
Okay. Well, let me explain how scientific. No, I'll start again. Yes. Let me explain how science works. So, a scientist has an idea called a hypothesis. Yeah, and he then will design, or she will design experiments to test that hypothesis. And the hypothesis will make predictions, and they'll be looking for evidence of that in the experiments. And when he's got enough evidence, he'll publish a paper. And then that paper will be scrutinised by scientists all over the world. I mean, thousands and thousands of scientists. They'll be taking this very seriously, and they'll be scrutinising this work. And they'll be looking at it and looking for flaws, and they'll be designing their own experiments to check the results of the hypothesis. And only then, after a very long time of scrutiny and a lot of work, and this can be years and years of work, will they decide that that hypothesis is a theory. And at that point, it becomes a scientific theory. And that is how the scientific method works.
Sorry, maybe I missed it amongst that. Have you done your own research or not?
No. I don't do my own research. I'm a theoretical physicist.
I do.
Right. Let me explain how science works. So a scientist will have an idea called a hypothesis, and he'll want to test that, or she will want to test that hypothesis. And then they will come up with an experiment to look for data, to test the hypothesis, to look for predictions that are made by that hypothesis. And when they've got enough evidence, enough data, they'll publish the results in a scientific journal. And then that scientific paper will be reviewed by thousands and thousands of scientists all over the globe, and they will be checking for evidence, and they'll be looking for flaws, and they'll be trying to disprove the hypothesis. That's the scientific method. And if they can't disprove it, and if all the evidence agrees with the hypothesis, it then becomes a theory, or scientific fact, if you like. And that can take years and years and years of testing and testing and testing, and then eventually scientific consensus is reached. And that's the scientific method.
Sorry, maybe I missed that. Have you done your own research yet on that?
Well, no, I'm a theoretical physicist.
Well, I have. So, explain to me why it is that no one can actually visit the South Pole.
People have visited the South Pole.
They haven't. You go there, and you get met with hostility from one. Sorry. No, you haven't. The people haven't been there. It's guarded. It's guarded. They won't let you there. And I believe the reason is because that is basically where you imagine the poles to be. It's actually on a flat plane. It's actually like a round ice wall. And what they protect. What the reason, like you said earlier, the reason why you would lie about this sort of thing is to protect from the resources. Like, so we're living here on this flat plane, yeah.
Right.
And there's an ice wall. They won't let us anywhere near it. Why is that? Not just because it's cold. It's nothing to do with Santa Claus.
But people have been to the South Pole. There's an Antarctic expedition that's based there.
No.
And we have photographs from space of.
Then explain this. From outside, so outside the wall, why is it that this sort of landmass is actually an abundance of resources? That's why they're hiding it. Because you've got, what I reckon, is you've got several other civilizations living on different planes outside ours, and they're basically using our species to harvest energy, resources, and anything really that supplies their life.
Who's doing this? Who are these?
Could be anyone, really. That's
anyone.
Could be. We don't know. I don't have all the answers.
Do we have any evidence of this?
Well, we know that that's a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We know that the ice wall is protecting stuff. Like, if you try and go there, you know how penguins are flightless birds?
Yes.
Did you also know birds aren't real?
Birds aren't real.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. No.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky one. I saw it on a TED talk about how birds aren't actually real. They were basically all stolen by the government, all kidnapped, and they were inside was put like robot technology, like AI, which is also now extended.
All birds, or just the penguins?
No, all birds, and then but specifically the penguins. They're a bit more of a hostile group, if you will. Kind of like, you remember the film The Rock with Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage?
I haven't seen that.
You haven't?
No.
Should have said yes. So in the film The Rock, right, you've got the mercenaries. They're like the special forces.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the penguins on Antarctica are the special forces of Antarctic defence. So if you try and go there, they're just hostile. Like they won't let you anywhere near them. They're the ones guarding Antarctica, and I think it's probably.
So, so when you go to Antarctica, it's the penguins that
they won't even let you
don't
board.
let you get there.
Yeah. Well, they're not penguins, are they? Let's be honest. They're like some sort of robot inside. It's weapons of mass destruction. You know, we just got it wrong in 2001. We thought we were looking for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. No. we got the extremities of a temperature correct, but it wasn't the hottest place in the Earth, the equator. It was the coldest place. We just got it wrong. We're having an off day. Like weapons of mass destruction are actually on Antarctica.
And they're all penguins.
Sounds mental, I know, but it's not.
So explain to me why you believe that the Earth is flat. What is your theoretical proof that the Earth is flat?
Well, I've done my research. I've done my own research. So you got the experiment I showed you, yeah?
Yeah.
Like, I taught you through a quite simple. You can do this at any point you want, right? So if I was to put my arm like that, how would you describe the shape of my arm?
As in you're holding it horizontally?
Yeah. But what's another word for horizontal?
Well, flat.
Yeah. So we can't do it right now because there's no horizon in view, right? But if you go up to any horizon, like on a beach or other forms of water, and if you hold it up, you can put it in line with that flat horizon, which we've already agreed is flat. This is the flat position, yeah? We've already agreed.
Right.
So if this is flat and it's the same as that, how do you explain that? It's flat.
But your arm is tiny compared.
Flat's flat.
Yeah, but it's tiny. Your arm is very small compared to the Earth, that's very large. So if you look at a ball up close, very very close to it, that would appear flat up close because you're very very close to it. So when you're comparing your arm to the horizon, you can't see the curvature of the horizon because it's so large, and your arm is quite small. You're not comparing like with like.
So it's flat, really. It's sort of you understand what I mean by the.
I understand what you mean by your arm is flat.
Yeah. So.
But the Earth is not the same as your arm.
How do you know?
How do I know?
I mean, obviously the Earth isn't. The Earth and my arm aren't the same thing. We all know that. You know.
Yes.
That's education for you. But I just can't help but see the difference in, you know, flat is a shape. It's a state of mind.
Flat's got a definition. There's no curvature on it.
Yeah.
It's not a state of mind. There's a scientific meaning to flatness, and I would argue that your arm isn't actually flat because your arm is a three-dimensional object that's got width and shape. So your arm is not a flat object in the mathematical sense.
I can see I've confused you, and that does happen a bit.
Right. Well, a ball up close. If you imagine a melon, yes, like the melon in your video, and imagine an ant was on that melon, and if the ant looked at the edge of the melon, to him, it would seem not very curved. It would seem quite flat, because the ant would be very very small on that melon. That's like us on the Earth. So we're looking at the edge of the Earth that is curved, and it's only when you go very high up that you can see that curvature, but on the surface it appears flat. Matching your arm to the Earth doesn't really prove anything. That's just you holding your arm up.
So I was just thinking about ants on a melon for a second. What were you?
Yeah, that was my example.
Cheers.